Commvault recently shifted the whole direction of the company and brought a group of people together with Gestalt IT to attend the event in New York City. The product was updated with new AI features. We saw some great integration with partners, and we saw some really cool capabilities like AI assisted data identification, threat detection, and clean room restore. That's what we're going to be talking about here on this Gestalt IT Roundtable. Welcome to this Gestalt IT Roundtable, where we're discussing some of the topics and products that we saw at Commvault's recent announcement called Commvault Shift in New York City. I'm Stephen Foskett, publisher of Gestalt IT, and joining me today is a group of folks from our independent technical influencer network who attended the Commvault Shift event. Before we get started on the nature of the product and the announcements, let's meet who's on the panel today.
Hi, I'm Jim Jones. I'm a product architect for 1111 Systems.
Hi, I'm Karen Lopez. I'm based in Toronto. I'm data chick on most of the social media, and I consider myself a data evangelist.
And my name is Eric Wright. I'm the Chief Content Officer at GTM Delta. I'm a writer, blogger, and podcaster. You can find me. I'm at Disco Posse all over social media.
Hi, my name is Adam Fisher. I'm a senior cloud architect with Worldwide Technologies, and you can find me on X, Twitter, at BonzoVT.
So all of us attended the Commvault Shift announcement in New York, and I think all of us were expecting it to be kind of a shift for Commvault since, well, it's right in the name. But also because the whole industry has been changing. I think that's the thing for me to get things kicked off. I think that's the biggest point here is that the data protection space, what used to be called backup, is now, well, it's something pretty different. Who wants to kind of jump in and talk about the overall space and how Commvault is shifting to meet that?
Yeah, I'll jump in there if you don't mind, Stephen. So as you'll see from a post that I've literally got up on the other screen that's getting ready to go live, we're seeing an interesting dynamic in the industry as a whole, where security and backup are kind of becoming intertwined. We've Commvault specifically pulled this up and mentioned it in their event with their whole concept of shift right. Kind of the opposite of we're going to put security into development. Now we're going to put security into backup and recovery to try to make sure that that data is well secured. And recovery, actually takes note of the fact that where you are coming from with those workloads and where that data was may not potentially be in a state to where it's going to be available to you. All of that is a very interesting dynamic, one that we're seeing across the industry today.
For me, one of the bigger parts was not just the shift, but what I considered a substantial focus on cybersecurity, and as well as maybe applying new AI techniques. And I don't think their AI is going to be just a series of if statements, sort of AI washing of what they're planning on doing. And for me, I think it's time for a lot of backup and recovery, or data protection, as we call them, vendors to start thinking about how they're not going to be so specialized in just doing that.
Yeah, and looking at the leading up to the event, we've seen a lot in Commvault and kind of how they brought out, the Metallic team. They treated it as a spin out, then they spun it back in. They really did an interesting thing in how they operated the platform team. And I loved that they really they nailed the story and how they got the product to the market. And then when they brought it back in, then they adjusted around a very successful go-to-market. So I thought that was one of the neat things to see, that they found the right opportunity. They took the whole company, they rallied around it. And then you look at the history of Commvault and the engineers behind it. These were not just, straight out of Silicon Valley, Stanford kids that they hired and they threw at a problem. These were people who were seasoned in data protection. They were their research team at Commvault. So the people spanned everyone from brand new product managers to OG engineers. So I mean, as far as a company approach to the problem, I really appreciated that. And then the actual solution, it's definitely more, as you say, Karen, more than just AI washing. They really did sort of show us stuff in action that was really, really both preventative and I think it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And, my biggest takeaway from all of that was really just kind of the who needs to care about this nowadays. It seems like, backup and data protection was always really just a function of IT, and it was kind of check these boxes to make sure that we're kind of prepared for the worst case scenario. But with all the risk that's out there and the ransomware threat, I think organizations are realizing that, like, we can't just pawn this off to IT. This is something that could really impact our business, and we should be, thinking about that. So it was, the conversations as well as some of those shifts in the product that you can see are geared towards that line of thinking.
Yeah, it really seems to me that, well, I'm actually wondering, maybe they learned some of this stuff through the hard way by building and rolling out the Metallic as a service product, and then realized that basically what they were experiencing is the same thing their customers are experiencing. Because I'm sure that, anytime you're going to put something on the internet, anytime you're going to go out there as a service, you're going to be attacked. You're going to have to deal with these things. It seems to me like they're dealing with sort of real customer problems, and they realized that not only is this something we have to learn to deal with, but it's something that we could reorient the whole company around. So let's shift and really look at the product here. So Karen, you mentioned the world of AI and AI washing. It always struck me that machine learning is really a great tool to find unknown needles in unknown stacks. And that really makes it a great fit for data protection, security, ransomware, et cetera, because essentially you're dealing with unknown threats. Is that kind of what you mean, that you're seeing sort of real AI applications here?
Yeah, I think so. And the fact that, they gave us examples and they used sort of the right terms, the right language to say, it's just, so many times we hear about products that have added AI, but no one in the room can explain how that's used. It's almost as if they're just, putting an RFP, a checkbox on the next RFP or something like that. I, I certainly also, from talking to the people after the formal presentation, that these are very confident, experienced people who understand the limitations of AI, what things it can do well, what things humans do well, and that I really saw a commitment in their hiring to these AI use cases.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely got that sense that it didn't seem like AI for the sake of AI, and what they presented to us really, to me, looked like exactly what Karen said, is that, people are good at certain things, and they demonstrated that the AI capabilities there are really to enhance the product, to enhance the end user usability, administration of it, and that it wasn't really a, take away and we're just going to AI all the stuff, but it was, how do we make this easier to operate and make more sense to operate and do things that you don't necessarily need to spend hours combing through to do manually?
If you look at what the tools do with AI too, it's, the first thing we've seen with a lot of companies lately is we use generative AI as part of our product. And it really is not too much farther than dark mode. Like, they're using it to generate their automatic help. There are context things that are interesting around user experience, and that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with being proud of that. But this was much more than that, for sure, that it was around finding summarization and using, building context in real-time data. That's like, it's just, there's no way that any other system can correlate the information at the speed that it needs to. And the fact that they're doing it in hybrid stories too, which was interesting because it wasn't just like cloud only, it's SaaS operated, but they had the hybrid story there, which also means that they've recognized the client base, and they're really not just saying, hey, this is a neat product for everybody that's cloud only. It was really, really well done that they said, we're going to build this well. It's going to be cloud centric, but it also will service all of our hybrid cases.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, so that interplay between SaaS and the AI components of the announcement are actually one of the things that's the most interesting to me. So the SaaS is kind of seen in two forms. One is you have the overlay, which is the UI thing that lets you do the AI capabilities, but that's less a SaaS because it still enables the traditional on-premises deployment. but allows it to slurp in data for greenfield backups to be able to be analyzed and be used as part of the overall service. But you also have the SaaS as the new licensing model. That's probably one of the things, if those of us in the data protection industry, one of the things you hear a lot about Commvault is it's one of the more complex things on earth to buy, to put it nicely. So anything to simplify that helps. But back to the AI, the right code part and the be able to search help part, it's what it is. But the concept of they're going to use that metadata that they're collecting and hopefully well securing to then be able to turn that into AI that can actually do more proactive threat hunting is really pretty interesting. That concept of layering it with the ThreatWise and Threat Scan capabilities that they have as part of the bigger solution as well.
Well, and to further that, Jim, too, the idea that they've created the protections, because the first target for any really particularly good ransomware tool is your data protection tool. And so the fact that they've got stuff like automatically regenerating metadata and resigging all of their images, like that they can do that dynamically, that gives you another sort of leg up on the competition, so to speak. And I, as somebody who's living through disaster recovery, as you can see, I'm sitting in the dark. I'm in the mitigation strategy of using a cellular because, sometimes things go wrong. So it's a matter of how we deal with it, not just accepting that it went wrong.
Here's the hoping that ransomware is not involved in your
Let's hope, yeah.
recovery.
Yeah. I think that the other thing is I liked that the AI was throughout the process of protecting data. It's just not a layer at the end to detect alerts, monitoring, alerting, which is a great tool for AI, a great story for AI. But it was also there as you start configuring and designing and deploying whatever it is, whatever job it is you're trying to do. And I personally, I know that my interest in all of this is the data discovery and classification features that are coming from the Metallic IO. There's a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing how they might be using AI to find sensitive data, to find the edge cases. Like some data is really easy to figure out, 16 digits grouped in 4, starts with 2, 3, 4, or 5. Even I can guess that might be a credit card number. But there are other sensitive datas, codings, images even, that I really think AI is going to bring a lot of discovery and sensitivity labels to those.
Yeah, that's a real good point, and it shows really what what AI can do beyond the sort of chatbot AI that we've seen with a lot of products. Now, that being said, they do have a chatbot that they're integrating into the thing, but there as well, I was actually very impressed and relieved that their chatbot isn't Clippy. Their chatbot is make the search box awesome.
Yeah, completely agree. And as someone who isn't so much an administrator these days anymore, I can harken back to the days of having to build reports and having a product that says, oh, if you need to understand how to do this or how to show compliance or how to report back to management that we've got everything working fine, that's great. But then you go and do it and you spend 2 weeks trying to figure out how to do it the right way. That kind of gets back to better enabling the users to do what's important and to more easily navigate the product and make it useful for the organization.
And let's be honest, if we had Clippy for data protection operators, humbly having been one myself, it would say, it looks like you're trying to find a way to fix something you forgot to turn on, but your boss is asking why it wasn't working.
Yeah, I'm interested in it, especially, Commvault historically likes to position itself as the quote unquote enterprise solution, maybe more than others. And like I said, in the way that it's integrating API calls and other scripting capabilities as part of the AI responses was particularly interesting.
So I want to get back to something, Jim, that you brought up a minute ago, which is the licensing and sort of the go-to-market, and it kind of goes with that as well. Yeah, as you said, I mean, Commvault has a reputation for being, kind of traditional enterprise software where you've got 5,000 options and all different opportunities to add this or that feature. I really like the direction that they're going with the product now, which is basically they now offer sort of good, better, best levels of product licensing. And the best one adds in a lot of this cyber readiness capabilities. But then they also have a fourth level, which is a sort of a platinum, white glove, hands-on offering. And one of the things that that offers, and again, I think, kind of changing the focus here, is basically a known good restore location based on Microsoft Azure. We actually had a Microsoft product manager from Azure talk to us at Commvault Shift. And I think that that's a really nice thing to do, basically to leverage a absolutely platinum partner and do something that really gives you some unique capability.
Yeah, so getting back to the partners that were at the event, obviously there was a big integration with Microsoft and the new component called Clean Room Recovery as well, which is another one of those AI enabled services that they're bringing to market here, and it's really interesting because it is kind of taking that next level of what we need to think about when not only protecting data, but how do we more reliably recover it and deal with the kind of disasters or attacks that could require needing to do something on the fly to get your business back up and running at a critical moment.
Yeah, and Adam, you have this idea of, we called it, they very neatly labeled it clean room in the cloud as a concept, but it's like we've talked about sandboxing before, and those are nifty, but it generally always required that your repository was on-prem, or if you're in the cloud, it's going to be generally in the same cloud. There are some other protection vendors who are doing cross-cloud repositories. But I love that they just said, hey, we went from the core of we need to be able to have a clean room that can generate on the fly so they can seed it immediately. So the cost is lower. I think that's, in the end, the greatest product on earth. If it costs too much, is not going to be well used. So this one will hopefully hit the balance of capabilities and costs, optimization, because I think that's for us to use the cloud more as a protection store, then we need to make sure that it's economical to do so.
Yeah, I agree. So the recovery is the part of backup that doesn't get talked about enough. As someone who has literally stood on top of mountaintops and screamed, "Test your backups, darn it." That thing that companies never think about is what are you going to do when you actually have to restore that data in anger? And creating a platform and a workflow where you can easily restore that somewhere else, whether that's because you're having to do it in anger, whether it's because you need to think about what that looks like when you move, that SQL server, that Oracle server into the cloud, or, any other workload that is not quote unquote native to it, is always a win. To the licensing model, the only mildest concern that I had about everything they talked about is this whole SaaSification and new licensing model. I am mildly concerned as to what that does to their partner and reseller network. That's as someone who works in that space, I'm not going to lie. It's always about a lot of the uniqueness and capability that you get is the iterations that kind of network can bring upon what you build. And so when you close down what's there, sometimes you slow down some of the other things that can be done, but definitely the simplifying how you sell it and how you restore it and giving a good platform is a positive for Commvault.
When you look at the partner ecosystem in general, right, that's always one of the biggest things, especially with data protection, where, like you said, where are we putting the data? You need a good, strong partnership there, both at the technical and the business layer, the adjacent partners. When we saw the customers who are also partners, seeing ServiceNow talk about the integrations and the stories, definitely as a person who runs many products with many single panes of glass, I was happy that we could say this is a unified way in which to bring data together for analysis, protection, recovery. But it wasn't the, hey, we're going to replace the other thing. It's just like, no, we're going to make it better. We're going to tie in better with your partner ecosystems, because more ITOM products are showing up, more observability stuff is showing up. And in the end, ServiceNow is probably a likely spot where a lot of enterprise folks are looking to get their data. But then, we're going to start seeing it show up in other CRMs and service platforms. So I like that they did have a good partner stories on stage. As you said, Jim, let's just see how it plays out. I'm excited by the opportunity, and hopefully those partners can kind of take advantage and really bring it to the market.
That I agree with all that, Eric. I just wanted to disagree with Jim here, and this is my usual rant. We don't need to test backups. We only need to test restores. Because if you go to test restore and the backup's not there, that's just to get people to think about testing restores anyway. The one thing I want to talk about is that term single pane of glass, which I sometimes typo single plane of glass, which is kind of funny. Is that, as a data person, yes, that's a UX UI thing, but in my heart, it's a data integration thing. And my questions that are going to be for Commvault are along the lines is how are you going to integrate with a lot of this data that we've already created or collected, such as the data classification, such as, if someone's migrating to this, it's always a little bit different to migrate to a SaaS than it is to, yet another third-party system. One of the things I liked about this event and the information we got is it wasn't just a marketing briefing. There was that. It was pretty. It was lovely. But that we had lots of time to spend with product teams, customers, new hires, Ms. Hathaway, who's hired as their cybersecurity expert. Like, I felt that there was more to it than just saying, hey, we've got new branding or we're doing something different. So when I go into these things, I'm always questioning, is this actually a shift or are they just announcing a new product? I saw signs of actual changes to the culture, to how they think about their services and products. And I'm curious also how you felt about that.
The thing that stood out for me was the fact that a lot of their team that were working on it were customers, right? So I saw a real neat generation of the staff and products where they were actual real live enterprise users, and that came across. So that's always exciting to me when you're hiring people from the field that use the platform. They really, really bring that inherent sort of tribal knowledge. And also the fact that they love it so much that they're willing to make the jump and work for the company. So yeah, that's a bit of a nod for me. Granted, it's a bit anecdotal, but I still see it as a positive shift.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just a really well-rounded announcement. I mean, the product was there. They really demonstrated the new capabilities of the product very well. But also it was about that conversation. It was about talking to customers, seeing the challenges that they have, and also realizing that, the same old way of doing things isn't gonna work now and definitely not in the future. So that there's a lot of conversations, a lot of planning, a lot of alignment that needs to happen to really be better at this. And they're working on a product that hopefully will evolve and can help in bringing that to customers.
Yeah, the proof is going to be in the pudding. Whether they're able to deliver a credible cyber readiness product or whether this is just a rebadge of a data protection backup company, it really is going to come down to what they deliver for customers. And I think that so far I'm seeing really good things. There's been internally at Commvault, I know there have been a lot of changes. We mentioned bringing in some new staff, some new talent. Certainly that was on display at Commvault Shift. We talked to a couple of those folks that were new to the company, and most of them came from a cybersecurity background, not from a data protection or backup background. And I think that bodes well for the company overall. You mentioned the guests at the event as well. Certainly, the entire discussion was a level up type discussion and more of a C-level discussion. And for me, that was the big takeaway from Commvault Shift, was the fact that this is a company that has, traditionally been important to enterprise customers, but as we've moved up the stack in terms of IT, the importance of backup has become less and less over time. And now here's a company that's basically moving around and taking a seat at the head of the table once again, trying to talk to the board, trying to talk to the executives, and say that cyber readiness is critical. And I think that they have a good opportunity to do that, especially in large enterprise companies. And I think that that bodes well for the company overall. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining me for this Gestalt IT roundtable discussion. I really appreciated having you all in person at Commvault Shift. It was nice to see you again. And I'm glad that we could all cover that event. If you look at gestaltit.com, you'll see a live blog that contains a lot of the live thoughts of the people on this panel, as well as the rest of the folks that we brought in to New York City. Also, as mentioned, if you look at their social media channels and their publications, you'll see each of them is going to be writing an article or covering it with a video or something as well. And so we'll see a lot more there. So thanks very much for listening, and check out Gestalt IT video on YouTube for more like this.